right, wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to the Brandon Josh Williams Show. Today I have a special guest for the very first episode of the show. We got Mr. Garfield Perry. Don't let his young face fool you. This guy is a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I have him on the show today to talk about his expertise in the world of construction, business, and while we're all here, real estate investing. Mr. Perry, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Brandon.
All right. Let's dive right into it. Essentially, what I want to know, and I think all the viewers want to know and listeners, is how does a plumber go from plumbing in the contracting business to essentially retired, living off cash flow? Take us back to the very beginning.
Well, it's kind of easy if you think about it, because plumbing is a part of construction. And so being a plumber, almost 20 years or so, I'm always in the house. I'm in there when it's being built from the ground up, whether I'm doing the plumbing in the basement, from the basement level or inside the house. So I'm always around housing, per se, from a building point of view. And so, it also, where plumbing helps with this is, teach me that I can't do plumbing every day. I have to find another easier way later on in life. So, there's a lot of way that plumbing works itself into my construction endeavors.
So let's break it down even at a more basic level. How did you get into plumbing? Why did you choose plumbing?
It's a great question, and it's a great story. I'm a person of faith, and so I believe it was divinely orchestrated. But if you want to say, I can give you a story. So I was airline mechanics.
What? You never told me this before.
I was airline mechanics. I did finished my first year. I was working at a local airport in Brampton, small local airport. And unfortunately, when the unfortunate incident of 9/11 happens, the airline industry kind of went on. I don't know if you remember.
Okay.
And so all the airliners were laying off pilots, and essentially what Brampton Airport was famous for was for training pilots to try to get jobs in the airline industry.
So what, were you becoming a pilot?
I was becoming a mechanic. I was doing a mechanic course.
Right.
All right. So, after the first year, I was ready to go to school out in Winnipeg, and 9/11, and then the industry started to go down, and my boss called me one day and says, "Hey, really sorry, but we're going to have to let you go.
No more work.
Because we're scaling down because we're not having enough students."
Did you have kids at that time or not yet?
Yes, I had kids, my two children at that time.
You had both kids at the time?
Okay. But how I get into plumbing is there was a guy at my local congregation that I worshipped, and he kept saying to me, go into plumbing. I'm like, just leave me alone, man. I'm not getting into plumbing.
You want to get into the trades.
I'm not.
Well, you technically were already in the trades as the mechanic, right?
Yeah, just in that sense.
Yes.
So I thought I would just continue into auto mechanic, because I'm in the mechanic field already, right? So I spoke to before I got into airline mechanic, we had a small business, my buddy and I, and we had some vehicles that we leased from a local dealership. And when I, because we go there all the time for service, and I talked to the service manager, I say, hey, I might get laid off, I want to try something in auto mechanic because I have a lot of tools already. Right, and he said, yeah, I know. Okay, he gave me a number. Can't forget it. He gave me his card, with his friend's name who's a service manager, and a number, and says, go there and tell this guy I send you, give you a job.
Okay, right on.
Yeah. So I left, and on the way there, I'm like, do I really want to do this though? I'm not sure. Not sure. And so I went to the library. Right, there's a library in Toronto that I went to, and started looking at trades, and I saw the 4 top trades in there that I liked, and I looked at it. I left there, went to a company that I used to deliver stuff for before I do mechanic, and got the job the same day. So the same day, the afternoon, after lunch, I went to the library, looked at trades, saw the trade and said, I could do plumbing. Left there because I knew a contact of somebody, a shop that I used to deliver things. Went to the shop, got the job as an apprentice in one afternoon.
Oh my goodness. And the trajectory would have been totally different.
Yeah.
So now let's move forward in the timeline a little bit. So became an apprentice. How many years as an apprentice?
So in the trade, especially plumbing, it's 10,000 hours, which is essentially to 5 years apprenticeship time.
5 years.
5 years.
You still had the 2 kids to feed and house to maintain.
Yeah.
So after the 5 years, became a plumber, and then now you're a licensed plumber at that time.
Right.
Did you go into your own business? Did you work for a company? Walk us through what happened there.
So it's an agreement between the trade union, because I'm a member of a local trade union.
Okay.
The trade union, your company, and the government. And so during the process after 5 years, you'll work in the field, say a year. Then you have to go do your basic first for 2 months at one of our local colleges that are specially designated for that. Then you come back and work. Then you go back for your intermediate. Then you come back and work. And then either at the end or close to the end, you do your advance.
Okay.
And so you finish those schooling, which is total of 6 months. Then you do your time in added up to the hours. Then you get time for schooling. And at the end of it now, then you write the QFC, the government exam, to do your license.
Okay, wonderful. And so, obviously, so you worked for a company as a subcontractor or employee directly?
I'm an employee directly.
Okay, how long did that take you to work through?
I worked for 2 companies doing my apprenticeship. So if you're at one company and you have to move on to another company, that's all fine. Your hours will carry over.
Fair enough.
And so because some company things might change and you might have to move on to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, you still have to work out all your hours, and it's been recorded by your pay stub. So they know how much hours you work by your pay stub, how much you get paid.
So how did you transition next? Now, I'm cheating a little bit here, guys. I kind of know his story a little bit. He's already shared with me a bunch of what he's been through. So I am kind of leading him into sharing his experience. So if you see me kind of asking certain questions, it's because I know his story a little bit already. But there's clearly certain details I don't know. I didn't know he was an airline mechanic. Now we're going to find out some other secrets he's been hiding from me. And so to continue on the journey of the story, now what pricked you to say, okay, I want to be my own boss or get into being a contractor?
Right. So the idea and the desire to be my own boss was something that I have from a young man, even before I was migrated to this country. So.
And where are you coming from?
I'm coming from Jamaica originally.
Okay. How old were you when you came to Canada? 22. So you came to Canada at 22. Yeah. You did your airline thing for a little bit. What age were you when you got into plumbing?
Around 30.
So it took you a little while.
Yeah,
that's
I did
fine.
a lot of things in between, including
fair enough.
Working at factories, working with agencies.
You did everything you could.
I did all of those. You gotta do what you have to do to survive and to pay the bills, right?
No problem.
So do what you have to do, man. Do something.
Exactly, to get by. So just kind of get an idea of, these things doesn't have to happen overnight. You don't have to start at 20. And if you realize rather that, hey, look, I'm 35, 40, you can always start again into something new. Look at this young man right here. Believe it or not, he found himself at 30 years old saying, hey, you know what? The trajectory is not really where I want to be. And he reassessed the situation and started in a whole different industry, to say the least.
Start from scratch too.
Start from scratch as well.
Yep.
So, and that would take a lot of faith. I would only imagine.
Absolutely.
What helps during that challenging time period to say, hey, let me transition, let me go into something else? Could you touch on that?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Brandon. And not everybody is in my position or can be. But in my particular case, my wife was a big reason why this happened, because she's a nurse, and so she was able to kind of man things while I start over again. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
you had some support.
I had support. I really have support. So I know that you might be watching this or listening to this, and you might say, "Yeah, I want to do it," but I had a little bit, little leg up, not a full leg, but because my wife was able to kind of,
support in between the bridge
while I'm doing, and she understood what I was doing. She believed in what I was doing, and so she said, "Hey, I'll man the fort down. You go and do your thing," and it pays off, because now I'm able to kind of take the fort back and run the fort while she kind of just still down.
But you know what? And that's a great point in terms of husband and wife partnership.
Absolutely.
while we're on the subject, would you mind sharing a little bit about, how maybe that conversation may have went, how to say, hey, honey, spouse, whoever, this is where I want to lead our family in direction, but things are challenging. How do you go about having tough conversations like that where things are not going as planned,
Right.
and then you had to shift and get into the right direction?
That's a great question, and I know this is not a marital, episode.
It's an all-in-one episode.
Okay. So it doesn't start the day. It doesn't start the day when you want to make the switch.
Fair enough.
And that's the key part. My wife knew who I was since we were married, and we were married over 30 years. So she knows who her husband is. And so when I say to her that I would like to do this, she knows, what I'm able to, what I'm capable of doing, and that I will do, what it is. So it really, it's something that has to be built over time. I mean, it's going to be hard to be a married person and you're somebody who always squandered money. Then you're going to come to your wife one day and say, okay, give me all the money I'm going to invest. She's going to be like, no, not happening. You know what I mean?
Could you imagine?
No, it's not going to happen. So that's something that has to build over time as a relationship, as a trust and understanding of knowing each other. So when I say to her, I haven't nailed down a profession per se, because there wasn't anything like a title I could say that
at the time.
And I think I'm going to do plumbing and all of this. And then she says, okay, do your thing. And we.
Yeah. So essentially it developed over time, right? The one, obviously husband and wife. Yeah. Trust is already there, and then just watching your work ethic, I would imagine,
Absolutely.
And how determined you were to succeed, and open communication as to the status of everything, right?
Absolutely.
Now let's go back to the story that we're all here for. So the plumbing. Now you became a contractor. We're going to fast forward to you being your own boss. Talk to us about that process of making the switch, making the jump, the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings, the scares, the confidence, even if that was even the case.
Absolutely. So I started, and one of the great things with plumbing and the trades, and so if you're out there, listening, and you're good with your hands, hey, take a look at the trades. They're great living. Just a plug for the trades. But one of the things that for me, and with plumbing also, is I could have worked my full-time job and start to build my little plumbing business on the side. Because, after work hours or on the weekends, on Sundays, not on the weekend, but on Sundays, I could always get a job to fix this or to do this. So I can start to,
slowly
do more practice on the side, build my clientele on the side.
Side hustle a little bit.
Side hustle. So that's how I started. Started building until I reached a point where I said to my wife, I think I can go out on my own, and I have enough clientele that I can make a step. Was it enough that I needed to pay all? No, but it was enough to at least keep you
going,
keep you afloat. Yeah, keep you afloat, keep going. And so nervously, I made the leap to say, okay. I think I was laid off. To be honest, I think I was laid off from one of the companies, and I'm like, that's it. I'm not going back to any company. And so I started doing my thing. Again, my wife was there still
as a support.
To start doing my thing until,
Curious. Yeah. What were housing prices at that time?
Wow. So when
were you renting? Did you own yet?
We've always owned.
Okay. When did you buy your first place? Were you already a contractor, or were you still employed as a plumber?
I was a plumber. So we bought our first full place. We bought a place with my parents before. Stayed there a couple of years. We started having children, and then we moved. So we bought our place 22 years ago.
Right on. What were prices like then? So it was you, your wife, and then mom and dad?
No. When we bought our new place, it was me, my wife, my oldest son, our oldest son rather, which was 2 at the time. Yeah. And then our young son was about to be born. So he was going to be, so that's his first, the home we live in is the only home he knows. Okay. And so that house, we buy it for I think it's 180, between 180 or 200.
180,000.
I believe it's 180. My wife says 200K. I'm going to defer to her.
even at 200,000, like that's obviously a different time period. What do you think the value of that place probably is now, out of curiosity?
I would hope it's 100 million, but I think it's just about maybe 8 to 1 million, somewhere around there you could get for it.
So anywhere between 800,000 to 1 million. So, and 22 years ago, it was the first one.
It's the first one.
Oh my God. What was that? Townhouse, condo?
It's a semi-detached.
It was a semi-detached here in Toronto?
In Brampton.
In Brampton. Okay, fantastic. Sorry to just jump to that there, but the reason I brought it up is because I wanted to get a full picture of the headspace from a point of view of, okay, you got wife, kids, mortgage to pay, home insurance, etc. It must have been tough, at least maybe mentally. Maybe you had savings. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it's because my wife was a nurse, we have kind of an idea of what income is like on that side. At that time, I was working with the company through the trade union and all of those, so I have an understanding of what income would be on that side.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it wasn't a guaranteed job like my wife, where my wife's a nurse, so she can go anywhere in any hospital.
Right.
I'm a plumber, but I was learning, still in the apprenticeship stage, I think, or maybe it might have been just about it. But things can go. You might have to leave one company if the company goes down. So, but either way, it's always a leap of faith. But I knew one thing. That, I'm gonna live in Canada for quite a long while, and I know in Canada there are winters, and you can't live outside in the winter time. So I'm gonna need somewhere to live.
Mm-hmm.
So in the back of my mind, the choice was, hey, are you gonna live in your place or somebody else's place?
Right.
So I think it's better to live in my place. So we bought the house because we have children, wife, myself.
Not only that, it's either are you going to pay your mortgage or are you going to pay someone else's mortgage?
I didn't know that then, but I know that now.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So, speaking of which, let's move up in the timeline. Now, the young man's a little older now. Talk to us about your first investment property. What was it? What type of style? I mean, townhouse, detached condo. What was the strategy that you implemented, the first one?
Yeah. So the first investment property I've ever been in, apart from principal residence that I've been in, is with my youngest brother and his wife. We bought a condo.
Condo?
Yes.
Where was the condo?
Mississauga,
right beside Square One.
Right beside Square
What
One.
year was this, if you don't mind me asking?
I can't remember the year.
2000 and something.
Yeah. Quite a long time ago. Yeah, that's the first. We bought a condo. And
give a rough estimate time ago.
I would say early 2000. Early 2000.
Oh, early 2000.
2000 and maybe 5, maybe about 5 or somewhere around there. Yeah.
You're next to Square One, Mississauga.
Yeah.
How many bedrooms?
It was 2 bedrooms.
2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom.
1 bathroom.
I can remember. I'm sorry. I could have bought detail, but that's not going to be the important.
That's fine.
We bought a condo.
Yeah.
But
what was the price? Hold on. What was the price?
The price was.
Got to be 100 and
yeah,
something.
I think it was about 100 and something.
Because
And a good friend of mine, a real estate agent at the time, set us up with a deal and get it rented and all. But when we bought a condo, we were cash flowing about maybe $100. It wasn't much cash flow. It's our first deal. We didn't understand all the details. We got a condo.
Mortgage plus
mortgage paid, and we have about 100.
Maintenance fees.
Right.
And still had $100 cash flow. That's not bad. Even today, that's not bad.
Right.
And money back then, $100 went a longer way.
It goes a long way. Well, the reason why we did sell it is it used to be everything was included in the condo fee, including the
water, heat, hydro,
hydro. And sometime after we had the condo,
maintenance fee,
they start to install new meters in every suite.
Okay.
And so now they took out the hydro from the maintenance fee.
Oh.
Yeah, and so now we
extra
have to pay
cost.
our own hydro, extra cost.
Out of your pocket.
Out of our pocket. So our cash flow
cut by a little bit.
Time, by a lot. Right? So we were either close to negative or just small amount. I can't remember the exact details. And then another thing that happened was the parking lot needed to have been done. So they issued a special assessment.
Oh my gosh.
And so
how much was the special assessment? Do you remember?
I don't remember how much it cost us, but I think it was something like 2,000 to 3,000 per
goodness.
Per unit. It was
all
good.
the profit got eaten out.
It was really good, and we decided, no, that's not happening here.
But did you sell at a plus or did you sell at a loss?
We did that, but at the end of the day, it's probably a wash by the time you expenses, and we weren't getting much on the special assessment.
It broke even.
Yeah, we probably did make something from it.
Okay,
I just probably don't remember all the details, but we did make something small. It wasn't anything to retire about.
Yeah. Well, I know, once again, I know the timeline. Yeah. So he didn't retire at that time yet. It's just the first property. Now, let's talk about, well, actually, before we just jump ahead, let's just recap what he just said. Essentially, him and JV partners came together. So you, your brother, and your brother's wife. 3 persons came together, said, you know what, let's invest. Maybe all 3 brought cash to the table. Absolutely. All 3 brought credit to the table, and all 3 brought their incomes to the table and qualified to get the mortgage and the property. Yeah. So this, getting a lot of nuggets out of this, joint ventures, married advice, and investing and whatnot. But the point is, of why I'm pausing to acknowledge this, is you don't have to do the deals by yourself. You can bring in a partner. In his case, he bring in more than one partner. And then later on, we're going to talk about how he brings on multiple partners to take on more property and more deals. Nevertheless, I'm hinting at too much. Let's get back into the timeline of the story. So the first deal, you got your toe and your feet wet. You got a little taste for investing. Between the first investment property and the next investment property, how much time was in between? Well,
not much, and that's a great thing. Once you start the ball, then you're easier to get rolling. So after we sold that one, then we bought a property in Hamilton.
Okay.
Yeah, and because we were in the renovation, my younger brother,
is in the business as well.
So we bought one. We did some renovation to it in Hamilton, and we had that going. And we had another one at the same time. I think we bought in the States because we had my brother's wife was in the state for a while, and so we have a contact down there. We bought one. So we sold that condo, and we actually get into 2 properties.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So
the equity from that condo helped you to get 2.
Right, with some more infusion of cash.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And so we had the one in Hamilton rented. We're doing okay with that too. Mm-hmm. But still.
Well, hold on. Let's hear about it. Tell us about the Hamilton deal. What was it? Semi-detached, detached?
No, it's a detached.
It's a detached bungalow.
Yeah, and
duplex or no?
No, it's not a. It's not a.
It's a single family home.
Sorry, it's a duplex.
It was a duplex.
Yes. So there's a back entrance with a suite in the back. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's a
duplex, bungalow, detached, Hamilton. Yeah. That cash flowed as well, I would assume.
It cash flowed.
By what? Maybe a few $100s as well?
Yeah, I can't remember, to be honest with that one. And again, when we were getting in, we were still not investors, Brandon.
Yeah.
We were trying. We knew that this could work. Yeah. And so we were keen on, we were trying to do, we didn't know then that it was the burst strategy.
Right.
But we started
to try to pull money out of the property.
Put money to create value by renovating and then renting. So
okay.
We had some idea of that strategy, but we didn't know what
it wasn't formalized.
We didn't even know the strategy.
Actually, you know what? I'm glad you brought it up. So you're saying you didn't know what you were getting into, but you had an idea that this could work.
Yes.
Create value. What triggered you to even get into real estate investing in the first place? I think we skipped over that completely.
Yeah. What really triggered me to get into real estate investment? I'm not sure the one thing. I can tell you the one thing that really cemented my passion for real estate investing, and that is Rich Dad Poor Dad, the book by Robert Kiyosaki. That was what cemented my whole. Let me say, yes, this is it. I'm going this way. That book, and if you haven't read the book yet, and I'm not getting paid by
Robert Kiyosaki,
but maybe I should charge him $1 for each time I recommend the book. I might get some money, but honestly, don't even worry about it. If you buy the book, you'll be better off, I guarantee you, after you've read the book than before.
So you went and got knowledge in terms of because Robert Kiyosaki is a author that inspired a lot of people, mom and pop investors, to get started or to think differently. So you read a book, you learned about this world of real estate investing, and then that triggered you to look into it some more.
Well, the book really didn't. It taught me that I wanted to get into real estate investing, but what is more important that the book teaches is the difference between an employee
and an employer
and
a business owner and an investor.
And that is the greater knowledge you will gain from the book. Not so much that of course real estate is really is
the investor quadrant,
vehicle, right? But what you really need to learn from the book is the difference
between those four
quadrants.
Right, 100%. So there's I don't remember if it's a cash flow quadrant, but there's a quadrant or section of the book that divides up income potential into 4 different segments, like you just said. There is where everyone starts out, employee. Right. Then the next step is self-employed. And then the next step is business owner, where you own the system. You might still work in it, but you own the system. And then the step above that, or the 4th quarter in that quadrant, is investor, where you own the entire system. You're separated from it altogether. You don't necessarily work in the business at all, but you're the owner of the business, whatever that industry may be. And it's not just business. It applies to investing on a whole. It could be stocks. It could be real estate, because that's what we're talking about. And it could be other ventures as well. But in our industry, we're talking about real estate. So Robert Kiyosaki also talks about real estate.
Absolutely.
And this is the realm where it's somewhat passive. It's not fully passive, it's semi-passive. But back to your story, second property, and instead of doing 1, he does 2. So right out the gate, that's like not traditional. Normally you do 1 and maybe get another one and then you go from there. But this time, let's do 2 at the same time, right? Yeah. So you got the Hamilton duplex, and then you got another property in the States. Which state, if you don't mind me asking?
It's Atlanta.
You got a property in Atlanta. Yeah. What type of property was that?
It was a fully detached. When I saw the pictures, I've never seen the house.
You've never been to the house?
I've never been to that. I've never been to that.
Hold on. How do you go from fumbling on your first investment property to buying sight unseen physically in another country?
Okay, and this is very important, and this you got to learn. This is okay. I'm going to say this, and I know you didn't ask me this, but I've owned 3 properties in Atlanta.
More secrets coming out from the
one with
mogul.
1 then with my brother and his wife. 2 after that I've owned, cash flow very nicely.
Nice.
Sold for almost 100% appreciation.
Return.
Yep, and I've got out notice. So, and I've never been
in the States.
I've only been to Atlanta once as a connecting flight through Atlanta.
Oh my goodness!
That's the only time I've ever been to Atlanta.
So all 3 of these properties, never physically even touched them. Never even drive by the address to make sure it actually exists.
I've never came out of the airport.
Oh my goodness!
But the point is though, is not that I did it foolishly or recklessly.
Okay.
I did it because I had very good contacts.
You made good contacts.
Who recommended, who was doing it there, who says I have properties there, and these are the people. And so I did not just do it recklessly, and that's what I would encourage you. If you're investing and it's going to be out of states or out of town or out of country, you got to make sure that you have the proper persons who you trust and systems that are going to protect your funds, because you can't see it. And so, don't take my testimony to just go and invest out of state. That's not what it was. Mm-hmm. I only did it because of
the team you built.
The team that I was recommended to. Mm-hmm. And those who recommend me to the team, because that's important. Anybody can recommend it to a team, mm-hmm. but the person who's recommending you mm-hmm. has to be somebody who you have trust and confidence that the information that they're giving you
is solid.
Is solid information, yes.
Wonderful. So you answered the question earlier, which was, how did you end up buying property overseas, well, across the border, sight unseen? And thank you for that wonderful answer. So, wow, to say the least, from 1 to essentially 4. And that's the power of real estate, guys, essentially, right? Now, he did say, to clarify, the equity he got from the first place, he had to insert some more cash. But the first one gave him the bug, gave him the juice, and then he was able to use that money and multiply that money. Now, another book plug I will recommend is Richest Man in Babylon as well. You should check out that book as well.
You got to read that
because he got the information from Rich Dad Poor Dad to know what quadrant he was in, but the Richest Man in Babylon will teach you how to grow your money regardless of what position you're in. Absolutely. So if you find yourself in the employee bucket, the book is outline essentially savings and how to manage your money to get to the next bucket, which is self-employed, and then ultimately investor bucket. So back to your story. What year was this now when you got the Hamilton place and the 4 properties in Atlanta? Around what year when you diluted those, or did you keep them?
Well, the one in Hamilton, we divested of that one. So if I was to go back in time and just backtrack it, I've studied 6 years. I had those for about 2 years, so that's 8 years. So the one in Hamilton, I would say it's probably about 10 years ago.
You held it. You had it 10 years ago.
And yes, I had it 10 years when we moved on. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, it's funny. The neighbor who lived across the street, in the house across the street, a young guy.
Hamilton, yeah.
In Hamilton, he was the one who we sold it to.
Oh, he ended up the neighbor buys it.
Yeah, the neighbor directly, like opposite directly.
Yeah.
Across the street from us, he bought the house from us.
Did you know if he was renting or owning at the time?
No, he owned the one that.
So he wanted to control his street.
So he owned the one he lived in, and I think he was fixing the lower floor to rent or something like that.
Yeah.
But he knows the folks who we had rented to, and he knows everything about the house, and so he
saw the opportunity and took that.
From us, yeah.
Wonderful. So obviously, to say the least, that place appreciated wonderfully, and even if it didn't appreciate wonderfully, the mortgage paid on a loan for what, 8 years you held it for, 6 years you held it for?
Yeah, I'm not sure how long we held it for, and you know, I apologize for not knowing exact times. I'm not that detailed in terms of times, and those were not the best times. These are the better times.
These are the better times. so don't worry, we'll get into that too.
You know, I mean, I have all the sales document and everything. I could look and give you times, but honestly, I don't know as per date.
So roughly what? Probably 3-4 years.
We held it.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
Regardless, mortgage paid on a loan would have created enough equity over a 3 to 4 years timeline. And obviously, I shouldn't say obvious, but during that run, 2010s, prices were starting to rebound. As we know, in the States, it tanked a bit, 08,
and that's
09.
when we bought one of the house.
Right, in the States.
In the house.
Oh, so you capitalized during the tank in 08, 09.
So 08, 09, that's
yeah.
when we bought that one house for 20 G's.
20 grand, cash.
20 or 22 G's cash.
Wow. Canadian or USD?
US.
Okay, so whatever the rate was at the time, doesn't matter.
And I saw the house of the picture and I'm like, for 20 grand, this looked like almost like an estate home. I could live.
Did you have the cash or did you just use a credit card? How did you come up with the cash? Oh, you had the cash, okay.
So we sent the cash there and we bought it, yeah.
Okay. So you got one cash and then the second one?
Yeah. So all the houses that I bought in the state, I had to buy cash.
Okay.
I had to buy cash. So the first one we bought together, then the other two, I buy cash.
Okay.
Because I'm a foreigner, so
you wouldn't be able to get the loan on them.
It's a very challenging.
Well, for $20,000, it almost feels like that's not even a down payment today. That's the deposit today.
Well, the only problem with that, Brandon, is had I known then what I know now,
you'd have bought more. No, well,
I'll come and borrow 20 grand from you and buy another one,
right?
But we didn't know. You just have to work it.
What you're given.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
So let's fast forward a bit, and one of the projects we were on together. Actually, you started without me, but you brought me in as partner / private lender. maybe you did stuff before, but you started flipping houses.
Right.
How did you end up getting into flipping houses? Talk to us about house flipping. What triggered that? What was the opportunity you saw, and the process that you went through?
Right. So coming from a construction family, we were like renovating for other people,
Mm-hmm.
for homeowners, and understanding what real estate, because we're doing some buying and thing. We thought that we could get into flipping, which would generate funds. It's a quick turnover. We have the skill in our family. We have the skill to completely build. So we could build and then flip and move on to the next one and all of those. So we were doing that in Toronto. We were, we were successful only in the point of buying and completely renovating a nice product. It wasn't financially successful because
Really?
because the price point to have bought houses then was so ridiculously high.
All right. Just because I was on one of your deals, let's talk about, and I know you hate it privately off here. You know what's coming next. Let's talk about 130 Pape Avenue. Because like you just said, you were very successful in building a very beautiful product. But on your end, the outcome wasn't that profitable as you hoped. If you can remember, deep dive into how did you get the deal, what was the deal, and what was the plan, and everything that took place.
So we had a good friend, an agent and a good friend. We worked with in Toronto, and so he very well knows what's going on. So he was the one who sourced all the deals for us. The Pape issue, which I want to forget.
Sorry.
But then there's another side to the Pape story, because the truth is, even though I want to forget the Pape story, the 130 whatever Pape did, even though I want to forget it, I cannot forget it, because it is what makes me what I am today.
Right.
So that a setback in life catapults you to. But that's it. Sir. But what I think was one of the issue we had.
Start from what was the deal for the audience, because we know, but the audience doesn't know.
So it's a semi-detached property, and we bought it. We got the permitting to take off
the roof.
To take off the roof of the second floor and add a third floor
On a semi-detached.
semi-detached.
How did you push that off? Did the neighbor have to buy into it as well?
The neighbor didn't have to buy into it, because there were other properties in the area that had the height.
There was precedence.
Right. One of the challenge with the neighbor, and this is where you just have to work with the city. On the third floor, where we joined to the neighbor, we had to step in 3 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to give up a 3 feet clearance of a third floor from the neighbor's roof.
Right.
Right. That was the code. You have to step in 3 feet because you're going up with one. So it was
The setback.
right. So the third floor was 3 feet narrower
Than
than
original
the original
footprint.
Right.
Got it.
So what we thought to do with that does make it be a walk around.
Mm-hmm.
So you can come out and walk
Right.
around. So that still works out.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that. Yes.
You remember the third
Yeah.
floor, right. So, but we made the complete third floor a master suite.
Correct. It was a beautiful master
suite.
suite.
It was something.
I wouldn't be surprised if you set the trend for that area
It was something
unknowingly.
And we did that, we put a lot of sweat and work.
Can we talk about numbers on that one? So you bought it at what price? If you remember, I think it was around $7. $7.99, I want to say.
I don't remember. I want to forget. But the bottom line with that property is we were
got
too
it.
impatient.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I would advise those who listen. If you listen, one of the things that I think one of the lessons you want to learn from this podcast is real estate. It's better you do your real estate business as a long-term game, as opposed to a short-term game. It might benefit you more. Yeah, you can flip and you can make money, and that's good. But if you have some patience in the longer run, you might. I've come to believe, based on having done both and time, that in the longer run, the longer term game might be way better than the short term. And Pape is a good example. Properties were at that time was really hot, the sales. But we know that 2 years or 3 years ago, if you thought it was hot then,
it's hot now.
It was like
it's burning.
It was burning.
Lava now.
So even if we had held on to the property
Yeah.
at break even,
Yeah.
maybe even slightly negative cash flow,
A little bit, yeah.
if we had held on for another couple of years or so, we might have cashed in big time when the market was at its peak.
Mm-hmm.
So we did not do that. We, because of how the dynamics was set up, we sold
Mm-hmm.
and just came out maybe break even slightly around there.
You still recovered, essentially. Whatever you put in, you got back out almost.
Maybe a nickel or dime on the negative side. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, we did not got what we
Should
thought
have
we
gotten.
would have got.
Right.
When we went
'Cause
into it. Yeah.
Just to, sorry to do this to you, just to add to the pain a little bit. I know we sold at, is it okay if we shared numbers?
Well,
We'll keep that back for now. So you sold at X price, and I know just one more year later, it was I think $150,000 difference.
Yeah, and if you had 2 more years to that, you might
And
have
2
been-
more years,
Right.
it was $300,000 difference.
And as I say to you, timing was everything.
Right.
Because we were playing the flip shorter term game, that turnover and go on to the next one.
Yeah.
We did not
Realize what was going on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair
So-
enough. So after the flipping, you realize that, flipping is not a strategy that made sense for you. You're putting way too much in the construction side of things in terms of making the house. No, I seen the house myself, so it was a beautiful house in terms of the finished product. So you did a great job there as a builder, not necessarily as a business investment at that time specifically. However, you gained the skill. You gain the knowledge on how to produce a luxury home, and 2, how to carry the costs, how to do joint ventures, how to do private mortgages. You learned a lot off that one house. So in real estate too, it's not necessarily just about making money or long-term wealth. Yes, these things come with it as well. However, it also brings different skill sets and knowledge bases that you have that comes naturally from it. Just to reiterate one more time, you learn how to JV, which you already knew how to do before, but you will learn how to JV if you do what he did. You will learn how to manage your budget because you're spending a lot of money, and you're going to try to value engineer certain things. Remember, the kitchen was one of the challenges. Do we go with custom build, or do we do off the shelf, right? And I think you did a mixture of the two, a little bit off the shelf, a little bit of custom items here and there. And then you started the essence of running a business, because I think you were flipping 3 houses at the time. If I
we did 3 houses, one behind the other.
Right, back to back, right.
Because of finance.
So you had a small little development company going on, essentially, and that also brings another skill set of managing people, managing trades, project management, to say the least, investor at the same time, to say the least, customer relations, investor relations with your investment partners, including the bank. You can look at the bank as an investment partner. So a lot of things comes from participating in real estate at any level, whether it was like me as a small private lender, whether it's him as the point guard that spearheaded everything, or as a contractor, or as the money partner, or as the credit partner, which is a potential as well. After we had fun with the flipping, what did we do next?
So just so I don't take all the credit for myself, in that
there was partners.
Yes,
there were partners.
My brother, his wife, my cousin, we
Right.
were partnered there. So
The whole
I don't
family.
want to take all the glory.
But you did mention it was a family
It's a
affair,
family, yes.
right? You guys are all construction savvy people.
Yeah. So after that, when that didn't go as well as I would have hoped, I decided, that's it. I'm done with flipping. I'm not doing this, because I was a little bit disappointed because we didn't get what we had hoped, right? And so I'm like, I'm done with this. And then we started, looking to other things. And then myself and of us, we started to do some education, and this is where
went to the seminars, meetups.
We met, we meet up. We met a lady that introduced us or gave us the number for some folks that were doing some stuff in
Kingston,
another town,
right?
Some sort of a special light bill, and we like that. And we followed up on the call. We get in touch with them.
We did our research. We did due diligence. Yeah.
And we got in touch with them, and I got a group of guys that we trusted and wanted to get involved with the project. We got in touch with the bank representative at that time. Right. A certain bank was offering certain deals.
Exactly.
And we got in touch with the bank. Have one bank representative came to a meeting. You remember?
We did a lot of due diligence,
work,
a lot of research,
find out everything, and so we say, we're gonna do it. We get a team together.
But let's glance over that. That came from just networking, put ourselves out there, and learning again first, right? And then from networking, like you said earlier, we got in touch with essentially the right people. We saw them face to face, belly to belly, vetted them based on what they showed us of their track record.
Saw the properties,
and what we're referring to is this was a builder out east Ontario, that had significant amount of land, small builder, not the giant ones, and was willing to take the time to explain to us the process and show us the ropes, so to speak, in terms of how to get land, how to acquire land, how to finance land, which was the big key takeaway we took. Not to take the story away from you, back to
you're a part of that story yourself.
True, yeah. So one of the eye openers was how to finance the land, right? And on how to be creative in terms of portfolio investing. One of the strategies where, like you softly said, was if you had 3 properties together, we could look into portfolio lending from other bank institutions that had different programs at the time. I think they're still running it, but maybe in a different way. But this was all new to us at the time.
Absolutely.
We didn't know, right? So what the other value too was, we also, I know when you say we, it's not just me and GP over here. It was actually 5 of us that got together.
4 active,
one passive investor. Where once again in real estate, as you do and act and plan and research, a lot of different things come out of it. Like, that's when we start learning about putting properties into corporations and investing through corporations and raising money through the corporation. And we raised a significant amount of money. We raised a significant amount of money. And looking back, we want to kick ourselves that we didn't do what we wanted to do. Nevertheless, to say the least, everyone got their money back, just to kind of tell the story. No one lost money. No one lost any money.
We lost opportunity.
We lost opportunity significantly.
Significant opportunity.
There was strip plazas that came and gone. There was land deals that we went to go look at, spent hours upon hours driving to even, and let it pass us simply because we wanted a little bit of everything. We wanted to do this, wanted to do that. The bug was not so much bitten us, eating us to do everything. But the lesson we took from that is, well, now we can say it, is to pick one course and follow. Because in real estate, there's many different strategies that you can take. There's the burst strategy. There's flipping, which didn't really work for us. There's private lending, which worked for me, and others as well. There is buy and hold. Just buy it, hold it, keep it, wait. There's even house hacking. So let's say you know what, you need to live in the house. You can't, wherever you're staying is not favorable. So you need to live in the house, live in one room, rent out the other room, right? I've done a little house hacking. I bought my place, rented to my brother for a little bit.
I've done my principal resident too.
And you started out that way as well. Absolutely. Other people may rent out all the rooms, basements included. So maybe live at the top floor, rent out the basement. I've even heard people live in the basement, own the property, and rent out upstairs because you would get more money.
I've done that if I didn't have a family or
you would,
I rent the bigger space, get more money.
To get more money, and you technically live for free that way, right? So there's that strategy as well. There's also more passive stuff like investing in REITs, right? Invested in trusts and what may have you, registered funds as well. But for us, we looked at everything from, as well as commercial. I forgot to mention investing in commercial spaces as well. We looked at everything from land investing to commercial, strip plazas, even short 3-story building. There's one 3-story building I came up with our lawyer that presented it to us. I'm not sure if you remember that. Everything together. But as well, what it also taught us was, one, how to form a corporation, two, how to put a business plan together and structure together to raise money, to be intelligent, to how to speak intelligently to investors and to partners. Contact
with a lot of people who are knowledgeable and all of those things.
So if we had just stayed put and say, oh, we couldn't invest because either of us individually didn't have the money, we wouldn't have learned any of this stuff. So instead, we came together to learn and put our 2 shillings together. If you're a certain age, you know what shillings are. and tried to get something happen. Now, it didn't work out, which we'll touch on the story a little bit in terms of the group staying together. But this is what triggered and this is the meat of the video, essentially, where everyone was actually waiting to hear about how did you get to where you are now, which is multiple properties, cash flowing, which you're living off of. Is this actually triggered, smaller you, but us, to get into the Kingston market of Ontario, the East Ontario market. And the first deal we did over there was a land deal, which you took over. Mm-hmm. And what did you do with that piece of empty land? Yeah,
so again, I mean, I have to say thank you to you guys.
Because we were all over the place, we walked away. I'll be transparent. We walked away, actually. But he was like, no, this is a gem. Yeah. What was the gem?
And again, also, I should say thank you to you guys and thank you to my wife.
Yes.
Because we talk about this in the beginning of when you have, if you're married and have a spouse that supports, it's really a big benefit. Mm-hmm. Because when as a group, it didn't work out with us. And I said to her, I would love to go through this deal.
Yeah.
And she said, "You think it can work?" I said, "Yes, I believe it can work." And then she said, "Okay."
That was it.
She said, "So go ahead."
Wow.
Yep.
Shout out to Mrs. Perry.
And that was like oxygen. Like that's
all you needed.
That's all I needed. And so we got into there. Bought the land. Mm-hmm. And then went through the same process. Yep. And build the property.
What did you build? What did you build?
It's a legal duplex.
A legal duplex.
2,800 square feet legal duplex.
2,800 square feet legal duplex.
Right. And one of the great thing about that property that I own today, that is cash flow.
So this was the first one of the current portfolio.
But one of the things that when we looked at the model that we were shown, one of the things that I noticed that the basement in those properties were left as unfinished area, like
storage,
cellars or something like that. And remember one of them that we looked at, it was a high basement, like a regular basement size. And
we didn't even realize we were in the basement.
Right, and I said to myself, coming from the city, if you have this, like this is premium place, like people would. So I'm like, anything that I do, I want to be able to have usable space in the basement. Mm-hmm. And so my particular design, even though it looks more like the others, the basement, I finished I have the basement done with enough height, and I finished the basement. Mm-hmm. For the basements, mine is probably I don't know after we stopped doing that, but mine was the only of that model that I know of that has the basement as a livable space, and I finished the basement on both sides because it had to be divided at certain ratio for each tenant. Finished them with washroom in each basement and a rec room.
Wow!
So the tenants have the basement to use as both. As a rec room with a washroom there.
Do you think that's coming from the fact that you built beautiful homes before? Yes. So you had the eye for what someone would want?
Absolutely. Because I was in the industry, I was in the city, and I understand that this is space. This is usable space that
that someone's missing out of. Right.
You know what I mean? And so I said, okay, let me finish it, and I finished it, and it was like it's beautiful. Still have that property going on 6th year. Same tenant where I leased it to from day one. They're still there.
Wow, wonderful.
Yes.
And the other part of that story, which I don't think we've ever talked about, maybe we did touch on it, but is the beauty of building from scratch, technically pre-construction. By the time you closed on it, the value moved.
Yeah.
What direction did the value? We know the answer. What direction did it move in?
It moved up, but one of the challenges though, is when you're building pre-construction or you're building,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be careful with there's a lot of charges.
Right.
A lot of soft costs,
Mm-hmm.
city-related costs that
Mm-hmm.
comes out of soft costs,
Mm-hmm.
and timing is an issue. If it's not done within certain time,
Mm-hmm.
then the longer it goes, the more it costs you. In potential rent that you're not getting,
Right.
but other costs too. People working and so at the end of the day, I would honestly say it did not turn out in terms of the cost. It overran more than what I had
Expected originally.
or more than what was quoted
Mm-hmm.
in the first place. It did overrun it. But at the end of the day, when it was completed and I looked at the finished product and what was valued then, as my first real investment property. The others were joint JV and all those, but as my first investment property, I was comfortable with it. It was cash flowing. Got good tenants. It was cash flowing. Still have good tenants there, great tenants. It's cash flowing, and so I was happy that I had a deal done. I built a brand new property, a great location, a property that I could live in if I needed to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
The
literally,
push came to shove. You could.
Yeah,
It's an easy house hack because it was already a separate unit.
Absolutely. I took my wife when we went to look at it, and she looked at it. We walked through before we rented, and
She gave the nod of approval.
Yeah, we decided this is somewhere that we could live. It's a beautiful property.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with all my properties. All my properties are somewhere that I could live tomorrow.
And that's a personal preference for you and your family.
Yes.
Because there's other investors that may say that have different strategies, different ways of
Absolutely.
looking at things.
Absolutely.
That may not go extent that you go in your properties.
Absolutely.
Right?
And you've been on properties, you see all of that.
Beautiful stuff. I wish I could buy it off you. I know you're not selling though. That's the problem. But so that was the first one.
Yeah.
Where are you now in your portfolio? How many houses? How many properties?
I'm about 10 doors now.
10 doors. Okay. Are those all? What are they? Semi-detaches, townhouses. What are they?
They are semi-detached and detached. I don't know. Semi-detached. I started out build one, then I get a couple of semi-detached. Now I'm just fully detached, but mostly bungalows.
Bungalows.
Most bungalows.
And where are these properties located?
They're out in East Ontario.
They're all out in East Ontario. Now, walk us through just to kind of people can see the jump. We got the first built from scratch to a duplex. That cash flowed well.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do we get to the next one? And then how do we get to 10?
Right. So we get to the next one by working hard.
To say
my
the
plumbing
least.
job.
So you still, throughout this whole time, it's not that we were just out there running around free. We still had full-time jobs. This was literally after hours and on weekends.
And
Well,
Brandon,
Sundays.
you and I travel enough and hang out to know what I
Right.
do when I'm working.
Exactly. I was his apprentice for some time as well.
Yeah, so he knows this. He knows all the routine done. Yeah, so
Yeah, there's a reason why I didn't become a plumber. Let's just say that. This guy works way too hard.
we worked hard.
Yeah.
But again, and I'm gonna throw this, and I know everybody is not there right now, and it's a little bit more even challenging now than before. But I would say to you, if you're able, one of the first things you want to try to get is your principal residence. Get a house that is your principal residence, because that is what I used and most people use to propel me to more doors. And Brandon, you know how that goes, because that's your principal resident allow you to get HELOC. And a HELOC is your Visa card to scale up.
Right.
That's the money that you can use to scale up. So, using that with hard work, we scale, we get into the burst strategy, which I think, For me, nothing like the burst strategy, as you know.
And just to take a quick time out, the burst strategy it's an acronym. It's B with R's beside it. So you buy property, you renovate property, you rent out that property, then you refinance that property because the value has now changed because you renovated it and it's bringing in cash flow potentially. Then the last R is repeat based on how much cash you get out of the refinance. So with that being said, back to your story on after the first one, you essentially refied the property because the value changed, as well as you kept working and you were able to put some insurgent a cash. Mm-hmm. So when the property went up in value, you refied some out, you left 20% in the property, obviously, in terms of equity position. And then you did another one. What was the next one?
The next one was a semi-detached, custom built. The gentleman.
A custom build again? Okay.
Yeah. Well,
no, the property existed,
right,
but it was a custom build from
so
that
the property
owner.
existed, and he created a legal suite already.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought it from him of the legal suite created.
Already,
yes.
Nice. So essentially, you just bought and held. And then wait for equity build. And you kept that one, so now we're at 2. Now the third one, how'd you do that one?
The third one was my agent that I was working with. He was an investor himself, and he had a couple of properties that he was kind of getting out of the business or scaling down. And so he says he wanted to sell me 2. And for about a year, he mentioned it. And then after about a year or so, he came back. And so I bought those 2 from him. There were 2 semi-detached. And he was selling both of them together.
Side by side?
Side by side.
Nice.
So I'm like, yeah, I'll take those.
And how'd you manage to finance that one? Was it the same burst strategy again? Because the second one you didn't renovate.
The second one didn't renovate because that was there. So now these were really now when I, HELOC come back in along with work. Mm-hmm. Really was really.
So with your HELOC, as you paid down the mortgage, the amount of HELOC you had access to grew.
Well, the amount I had to start with.
Right.
So
and then as you pay it down, it will grow. Right. It grew.
Right. So whatever I had, I didn't exhaust all of it because we had the house for a while, and so we usually but probably more of it came from
cash insurgent.
Yes, from my work.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so we've done those 2.
So property 1 cash flowed about how much roughly?
About 300. And
then property 2 cash flowed about how much? The same 300, 200?
No, more than
more?
Than
Okay.
At the time, it's way more than that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it just the cash flow.
And then the snowball from there.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
All cash flow positive, all properties. Now, the first 3 you did on your own. At what point did you had to bring on partners? Was it the 4th, 5th, 6th?
It's about the 6th.
So around that time, no matter how hard you worked, you only had 24 hours a day, right? You had to bring on a joint venture partner. And what did that look like in terms of
I brought a JV partner more for cash.
To get the deposit, the down payment.
That's right.
Now, just a quick break. To get property, you need 3 things. If I didn't mention this already, you need down payment, you need credit, you need income, right? So in this scenario, you had the cash and you could show your portfolio. You most likely had good credit at the time, but the down payment was missing. So you brought in a partner to fulfill that missing piece. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And I know there's something that we probably should say here, Brandon, is when you're investing in real estate and you get your first deal, it's not the time to quit your job. Mm-hmm. You need your full-time job to qualify you for more mortgages.
Correct.
So, don't think that it's time to quit your job
after the first deal,
or even before the first deal when you think of real estate. That's one way you could.
Yeah.
But I think if you keep your job, it's easier for qualification for mortgages, and protect your credit. Mm-hmm. It's very important. Protect your credit. All right. So you have your job, and if you have a spouse and they have their job, you will qualify way more easier for mortgages, and you can scale up more than if you quit your job.
Valid point, because that's what you essentially did the whole time. You kept your job, and
my wife have her job. I have her job. I have my job.
So at what point? And I'm glad you brought it. So at what point did you know or realize, hey, you know what, I can retire soon, or it was enough.
So the retirement thing is, and I know I said I retire, but I'm
you work when you want.
Yeah,
you pick and choose your work now.
And for me, I can do that because my monthly bills are being covered by my cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, for me, that's like
fantastic.
That's fantastic.
Any other job project here is just gravy.
It's gravy. So I'm still able to work. I still do work. Mm-hmm. I work this morning.
Right.
But I work
when
on
you
things
choose.
that I want to choose. I don't work on everything again like I used to. I don't go, long hours or all of those. If I want to go on a vacation, if my wife want to go away tomorrow, if I want to go do anything, I can do it. If I want to volunteer, I can volunteer. If I want to come and sit with you and share some knowledge, I can do that. Right?
Have a talk, you can do it. And that's the wonderful power of real estate. Now, with that being said, what's your thoughts on the environment today in terms of values? Because one may say you're lucky because you bought at the right time. Or a young person may say, obviously, you bought you got started when properties were $200,000.
Right.
Nowadays, we're looking at properties, at least in the GTA proper, that's from, your Durham, Whitby to the east to, I want to say maybe as far as Burlington to the west. Obviously, Lake Ontario to the south. We haven't figured out how to build in Lake Ontario yet. So to the north,
it's coming.
it's coming. And to the north, I want to say maybe, King City roughly. Some people might include Barrie, but GTA proper, you're looking at $800,000 minimum for a townhouse, even in some cases, to upwards of $1 million plus. What would you say to someone that's say, okay, we get it. How do I even get in?
That's a great question. I'd ask you to consider this though. Property doubles every 7 to 10 years in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been historically so for
proven.
A long time.
Mm-hmm. Even with the dip.
Right. So if you think that it's unattainable now, come back 10 years time and tell me what you see. And I don't say that to make joke. I say that to say to you is, it's not going to get better.
Right.
It's not like, unless something catastrophically happens, it's not like properties that are 800 or a million now gonna
stay
be 500,000
tomorrow
or 10 years from now. I would rather want to believe that a $1 million property now, 10 years from time, if everything holds true, is going to be $2 million because property doubles every 7 to 10 years.
So what do you say to the person?
So what do I say to the person? That's a
that
great
can't
question.
afford the $1 million property.
I would say to you, you probably can do a couple of things. All right, you can probably maybe look into a condo,
lower price point, yeah,
at the lower price point, and one of the things with property is you can benefit especially from your HELOC, not necessarily from a house, but from your principal residence, that being a house or a condo, or whatever is designated as your principal residence that you own. So you would like, that's an option that if I was just starting out, I would have explored myself. You know about that,
mm-hmm.
right? So you start there. It's a smaller price point. You can get into that. If you maybe have some extra money, you can pay down on the mortgage to bring it on all of those. So that's one way to start.
And I'm not knocking condos. I'm not sure if that came up, but I had a condo.
Yeah.
I lived in the condo. Absolutely. And let's just say it went up significantly during the time I stayed there and paid all my debts at the time and whatnot. And that same year, it was able to help me get to the next level, which was a townhouse. So my story, we'll hear a little later on, another episode, how I went from one property to the next as a stepping stone strategy.
Absolutely. So there you go. Full example. And the other thing you can do, if you can find the right persons, then you can JV on a property, mm-hmm. and maybe 2 or 3, and start there, because then the cost will be divided
amongst the partners.
Them. Again, you would want to do it though with people you trust, and also make sure if you're doing like things like those, it's all legally drawn up by lawyers.
Yep.
Don't go have a paper towel sign.
Correct.
An agreement you sign in Timmy's or Starbucks on a paper towel and say that's your agreement. Don't do that. If you're gonna do it, make sure that everything is all legally sorted out, legally, recorded by lawyers and all of those. And maybe that's a way to start. And maybe the truth is, maybe that's a way that a lot of young people need to start.
Partnering up.
Yeah, because the price point is, especially in the GTA, the price point is
significant, to say the least. But and I'm glad you touched on it a little bit. The other options are 1, condo, 2, pre-construction, where if you're a good saver, and you can stretch out the deposit structure over time, right? Where you can get into the market, at least the GTA market, in that method. There's also what you did, which I was hoping to pull out of you, which was, you don't have to invest in the GTA specifically. You can invest outside of GTA. One of a few of your properties are in Eastern Ontario. Some other people go to Western Ontario. Some people go to Alberta, Northern Ontario, Sudburys of the world, the North Bays of the world. Muskoka, depending on the strategy, you could do cottage rentals or investments as well. Ottawa as well. And just to get to that price point that you fit into. And the magic isn't necessarily in that specific property. The magic is in the mortgage pay down. The magic is in the potential tax write-off on the interest portion of your mortgage. And then once you build up enough equity, then you can look at repositioning yourself, whether that's to sell, to refinance, and do something else. Maybe come back to the city at that time and do something else. Use it as a way to attract investment partners.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I know we're coming up against time here, but I think one of the things that I'm not sure if a lot of people know about your principal residence. What you ought to know is your principal residence is one of the only investment that you can make in this country that's 100% tax free. The interest, not the interest, the appreciation you make on it, and so
on your principal.
And the principal. So if you buy the house for $100K, and it doubles tomorrow to $200K, and you sell it, and that there's some guideline that has to hold long. I'm just using this
as an example. Yeah.
Yeah. If you sell a property, that $100K profit that you make is 100% tax free because it was your principal residence where you lived, right? And so, back to the point you just made, you might say, you know what, I might have to go outside of a certain geographical area to buy something a little less expensive. You hold on to it, it like blows up. Then you can sell it there tax free and then come back to the desired area. You know what I mean? So you can enter the market now even at a higher point, but because you have made. So again, you want to get in the mindset of the benefits, and one day you could probably get somebody and talk about the benefits of owning a principal residence. I think
we can do a part 2.
It's a lot of benefit.
Just to talk about principal residence. All right. So with that being said, thank you for coming out. Thank you very much for sharing your story. I'm pretty sure we all learned a lot. Learned some of your secrets a little bit in terms of your journey, your process. It's been wonderful. Any last words or advice or ideas you wanted to share with the people?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you're not always going to see everything. If you're waiting to see all the I's dot and all the T's cross and everything certain when you're investing in real estate, you're never going to do the first deal, right? You want to make sure that you do your best analysis, get all the right advice, set up all the right things, put all the right things in place. But, you're going to have to take a step, right? And so, take a step. Do your best analysis on everything, but you're not going to, until you make the first move.
You never know.
You never know. And so just have it in the back of your mind. You have to make the first move.
Take action.
Take action.
All right, Mr. Perry. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. Sharing your story and taking the time out of your day to share what is possible with real estate investing, and your journey so far. All right, there you have it. This was the plumber, now real estate mogul. At this stage, deciding when he wants to work, if he wants to work, and where he wants to work. He's now living on his terms. With that being said, if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, any remarks or comments, feel free to leave it in the description below or send me a message. Let's have a conversation. And if you're curious to learn more about real estate as investing, there will be more videos and episodes to come. Thank you for tuning in. Catch you in the next one.